नमस्कार। मैं सी अनिल नाइक आप सभी का स्वागत करता हूं मेरे इस YouTube चैनल पे। आज एक यूनिक टॉपिक लेके आया हूं जो ऑलमोस्ट डे टू डे लाइफ में इफेक्ट करेगा एंड दैट इज कैपिटल गेन ऑन शेयर्स म्यूचुअल फंड्स। Along with that, we will also understand the taxation part of futures and options and intraday trading. And along with this, we will understand how it is to be accounted while filing the return of income. Filing the income tax return is around the corner. I'm sure you might have all already compiled with the statements of capital gain for the financial year 25-26. And accordingly, you might be making preparations to file your return of income. So, आज समझेंगे फर्स्ट कैपिटल गेन मतलब क्या। वो पहले भी मैंने कहा है इन द केस ऑफ इमोबल प्रॉपर्टीज, बट यहां पे वापस दोबारा कहूंगा कैपिटल गेन मीन्स सेल माइनस कॉस्ट। जो भी अगर प्रॉफिट है तो कैपिटल गेन, अगर लॉस है तो कैपिटल लॉस। ओके, कैपिटल लॉस इज ऑल्सो इंपॉर्टेंट एंड व्हाई इट इज इंपॉर्टेंट दैट आई विल मेंशन इट slightly later on. First, let us try and understand about the profitability part. So, capital gain is equal to sale minus cost, right? And in capital gain, there are two types of capital gain. One, long term, and the another, short term. And long term and short term is dependent on the holding period of the shares or mutual funds. Now, when we come to the holding period, what is the holding period to be considered for equity shares? The holding period for equity shares, if it is exceeding 12 months, then it is considered as long term. If it is less than 12 months, then it is considered as short term. For mutual funds, there are of course two types of mutual funds, the equity mutual funds and the debt mutual funds. So first, let us try to understand the equity mutual funds. Now, in equity mutual funds also, the holding period, if it is up to 12 months, then it is short term. Exceeding 12 months, then it is long term. Now, when do you call a mutual fund as an equity mutual fund? If the mutual fund company invests more than 65% in the equity, then it is called as equity mutual fund. If the mutual fund company invests less than 65% in equity, then it is called as debt mutual fund. So we will talk about debt mutual fund slightly later on. As far as equity shares and equity mutual fund, they almost go at par. If there is a long-term gain, then there are several benefits. Several benefits by way of exemption as well as by way of a concessional rate of tax. So what is the exemption in the case of long-term capital gain on equity and mutual funds? The exemption amount is rupees 1,25,000. That means up to rupees 1,25,000 long-term capital gain on equity mutual fund or equity shares, you are not required to pay any tax. So if your capital gain is, let us presume 1 lakh, that means it is within the exemption limit of 1,25,000. So therefore, you will not be paying any tax on that. But if your capital gain, long-term capital gain on equity shares is at 2 lakhs, then up to 1,25,000 exempt, on that balance 75,000 only, you will have to pay the tax. So this why I'm mentioning is so that you can accordingly plan your capital gains or your sale transactions. Fine, we come to the tax rate. The tax rate for long-term capital gain on equity or mutual funds is 12.5%. This is the basic tax rate. The surcharge and cess would be applicable on the basis of your higher level of income. So we will talk only about the basic tax. Let me make it very simplified. Okay, so 12.5% is the tax for long-term capital gain on equity and mutual fund. And what is the short-term capital gain tax? The short-term capital gain tax now is 20% on equity and mutual funds. One more aspect I would like to share about the equity and mutual funds. If you are transferring the equity shares through the stock market, then only these exemptions and concessional rate of tax would be applicable. That means securities transaction tax needs to be paid, STT, which is very popularly known as. Coming now to the other instruments like debt mutual fund. Now for debt mutual fund, kindly note that there has been a change in the law. Okay, with effect from 23rd July 2024, when you sell the debt mutual fund, then it is presumed to be a short-term capital gain and you will require to pay the taxes as per your normal income tax rates. Debt mutual fund is not tax friendly compared to the equity and equity mutual funds. Great. Coming now to the next instrument, and that is GSEC. What is GSEC? Government securities bonds. For government securities bonds, the long term is if you are holding the government securities bonds for more than 12 months. If you hold it for less than 12 months, then it is short term. What is the tax rate for long term? As in the case of equity and mutual fund, same. And that is 12.5% for long term, and for short term, it is 20%. Kindly note that there is no indexation benefit whatsoever, neither in equity, nor in mutual funds, nor in GSEC bonds. So indexation, which was available in the immovable properties that I had shared in my earlier video lecture, that will not be applicable here. Of course, we have the basic exemption limit only for equity and equity mutual funds and not for GSEC or debt mutual funds. Fine, I think this is about the capital gains. Now let me come to futures and options. Most of the futures and options trading profit, what has been earned, most of the people presume it as capital gain, but it is not. Futures and options is not part of capital gain. It is part of business income. So any profit or a loss will have to be treated as a business income, and if it is a profit, you can claim the expenses. If there is a loss, also you can claim the expenses. The expenses could be by way of brokerage, by way of advisory fees, and even to the extent of depreciation on computers that most of them buy in order to do the trading of futures and options. So whatever is the incidental expenses or ancillary expenses related to the income of future and options, you can claim that as expenditure. So it's like it is to be treated as a normal business income. Now coming to the intraday trading. What is intraday trading? The intraday trading is when you sell or buy on the same day. So in the morning you buy and in the evening you sell, or in the morning you sell and then in the evening you buy, then that is called as intraday trading. So whatever is the profit or loss on intraday trading, that is considered as speculative transaction, and it is considered as speculative income or speculative loss. What's the difference between a business income, normal business income, that is for future and options, and speculative income? The most important difference is that speculative losses can be set off with speculative profit, and business loss can be set off not only from business income, but it can be also set off from other incomes like rent or interest or dividend other than salary income. That's the great difference. And one more important point of difference between speculative loss and business loss is speculative loss you can carry forward for only 4 years, whereas business loss you can carry forward for 8 years. So that's the difference between speculative transactions and normal business transactions. So kindly note, future and options, normal business income. Speculative transactions, intraday trading transactions is a speculative income. We come to the commodities transactions. If then you are trading in commodities, then that will also be considered as a normal business income. Some of the finer points in future or options as well as in intraday trading, which is very, very minute point, but very important to be noted, because while filing the return of income, you will have to consider these information. Now, in the case of a business income, you need to show the total value of sales and the total value of purchases, right? So how will you show it in the case of future and options? In the case of future and options, you have to calculate the sale by making a total of each of the transactions profit or loss. मैं एक एग्जाम्पल देता हूं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, आपने एक प्रॉफिट बना है 50,000 का एक ट्रांजैक्शन पे, फ्यूचर एंड ऑप्शंस का, और दूसरे ट्रांजैक्शन में आपने लॉस किया 15,000 का. ओके, सो आप बोलेंगे कि 50,000 माइनस 15,000 सॉरी, तो वो हो गया 35,000. दैट इज योर नेट प्रॉफिट. ट्रू, बट द टर्नओवर हियर विल बी कैलकुलेटेड एज 50,000 प्लस 15,000. सो टोटल हो जाएगा 65,000 का टर्नओवर. सो आपको टर्नओवर दिखाना है 65,000, आपका जो प्रॉफिट हो गया है वो 35,000 है, तो बीच का जो फिगर है डिफरेंस वो हो गया परचेजेस का फिगर. इज दिस क्लियर? दैट इज फॉर फ्यूचर एंड ऑप्शन. बिकॉज आपको ये ध्यान रखना है, क्योंकि इनकम टैक्स रिटर्न में आपको इंफॉर्मेशन देना होता है टर्नओवर का. सिमिलर इज इन द केस ऑफ इंट्राडे ट्रेडिंग, दैट इज स्पेकुलेटिव ट्रांजैक्शन. स्पेकुलेटिव ट्रांजैक्शन में भी आपको टर्नओवर का फिगर देना पड़ता है, जो कैलकुलेट करेंगे इसी स्टाइल में. हर ट्रांजैक्शन का जो भी प्रॉफिट है एंड लॉस है वो आपको लिस्टिंग करना पड़ता है, एंड उस सारे का टोटल करना पड़ता है. लॉस को भी ऐड करना पड़ता है प्रॉफिट के साथ, और वो टर्नओवर का फिगर आ जाता है. सो इन स्पेकुलेटिव ट्रांजैक्शन, दैट इज इंट्राडे ट्रेडिंग, एंड इन फ्यूचर्स एंड ऑप्शंस, in both ways the turnover calculation is in a similar manner. One more point, extremely important, and that is tax audit. If your turnover in futures and options or in speculative transaction, in this manner it is calculated, and if it exceeds 10 crores, then you need a chartered accountant to certify that, which is called very commonly as tax audit. So kindly note that once your turnover crosses 10 crores, you will need the help of the chartered accountant to get these accounts audited. And if you do not, then you have to pay penalty. And the penalty is to the extent of rupees 1,50,000 or 0.5% of the turnover, whichever is lower. So kindly note, you will have to be very careful while calculating this and filling up in the income tax return. I'm sure you have got a brief insight about all these transactions. If you have liked today's video, kindly like it and share it with your friends, because they also would like to know about all these information. And when you share it, it helps. It helps not only you, but your friends. So kindly do that, and please subscribe to my channel so that you get notifications on time. Once again, I will come up with a new type of video lecture in the next week. Till then, goodbye, dhanyawad, jai hind.